Hi, I'm Cas.
I'm Faith.
This is That's Valid Podcast. Welcome to the conversation. The way you just stared at me.
I was like, what are we doing next?
I hate it here. Okay. I also hate, last week, or 2 weeks ago, I don't even remember at this point, we talked about how well I sleep during the full moon, and I fucking jinxed myself because this entire week I've not been able to sleep until like 3 or 4 in the fucking morning.
Yeah.
I am up. You were up the other night with me too. We were just sending TikToks to each other.
Yeah.
And then surprisingly, we were both up by like 10 a.m.
Yeah,
we didn't go to bed till like 4.
Yeah, we went to bed and Cass was like, well, I'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. And then
And I meant it
I
with
woke up
my
early
whole
to
chest.
spite you.
I meant it with my whole chest. I was like, see you tomorrow, 2 in the afternoon. And I knew I was going to be right. And then you were like, ha 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 ha.
Well, I think I woke up, because I always wake up to take the dogs out and then I just go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I woke up and it was like, what, 11:30?
Yeah.
And I was like, I could wake up now.
I can wake up.
I'm just going to prove
you,
Cass
Cass.
wrong.
I can wake
I'm just
up.
going to wake up now.
That's my new strategy, is gaslighting you into waking
Yeah.
up early so I can hang out with you more.
Well, especially when my schedule changes, not this coming week, but the week after that, and I have the option of sleeping in during the weekdays.
You're not going to have the option. We have so much stuff that we have to do every
I know.
day, and I'm going to make you start helping with it. I'm be like, this
Yep.
is your homework assignment. Please turn it in by end of week.
I'm gonna be one of those husbands, like the mom does everything and the husband does nothing, but has to be told like things to
That's
do.
me. I'm already
Yeah.
a mom. I already have like 10 to-do lists. It's no different, you know?
Just tell me.
My kids have been waking me up early every day, despite me going to bed super late every day, and I've been wanting to die. But I've also been having the best dreams. And I was looking into
really
this.
vivid ones.
Really vivid, really cool, like fun dreams. Like I haven't had any bad ones. They're all been like amazing, like everything I want in life, like fun, cozy games, and like people being nice to me and loving me and worshiping me, and it's wonderful. And I was looking into that for like the August new moon, and apparently that's a thing because of the Lionsgate portal. Like you become like highly intuitive almost, and you start getting like really intense, weird fucking dreams. And I looked at the dates. So like everybody knows the portal. Well, everybody knows the portal is like at its strongest on August 8th, but it's actually open from July 28th to August 12th. And July 28th was when I started sleeping like shit and having weird dreams, because it's been like a week at this point.
Yeah.
And it literally like it falls right into it. And I was like, okay, all right.
So are the things that you've been dreaming about things that you're going to manifest tomorrow?
I think 2 days. But I think the things that I've been dreaming about are things that I've already been manifesting. So, like, I've been manifesting. I got goosebumps when I said that. Okay, universe. All right. I think the point in my life that I'm at is the things that I want are to feel, like, solid in my career and to feel, like, abundant and successful and, like, I can help people. And I feel like, with the exception of that, the only other thing I want is, like, a happy and healthy home life. And those are the things that I put all my energy towards, because like nothing else is really lacking in my life right now, which is such a crazy thing to say. But like I feel like my friends are solid, and like, yeah, I could always have a couple more friends. Like, you know, it'd be nice to like go out and do some things, but I don't know that I want to put the energy into more people. So it's just like,
But that's what your dreams have been about too. Like very cozy, like everyday things.
It hasn't been anything that's like crazy. Like last night was the most intense that it's gotten, and even then it was like, it wasn't intense in a bad way. It was intense in like somebody had been like longing for me for like 7 years through a friendship, and like confessed their love to me, and it was like really sweet and intimate and like romantic. And then I had like a really weird like zombie dream, but that's not the point.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't count. All my other dreams that I've been having have been along the same lines. Like they've all been about me just feeling like safe and at home and comfortable. And like, I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me in that dream last night was that like when everything was happening, there wasn't like that fear of vulnerability. Like, you know, that moment where like stuff gets real and you like cleanse up and you're like clammy and you're like afraid of what to say. There was never that. It was just like the feeling of like awe and like comfort. Like that was the only energy that was coming through. And I was like, that's amazing. Like for someone to be like confessing to you and it to not be a scary thing is not something I've ever experienced. And I think that's because all of my relationships have been shit. And like a part of me has always known that they were the wrong person. And it was like to take the risk on them because they had the potential to be a better person. And with this, it didn't feel like that. It was just like comfort. Yeah. And it was so nice. And that's like the theme across all my dreams so far. So I'm just gonna like hope that my manifestations are like being sucked up by the universe, and now it's like being spit out at me like, look, this is what's coming.
Yeah. And like for those who don't know, like the Lionsgate portal is thought to be such a really important day for manifesting because like it goes back all the way to Mesopotamian times.
Yeah, like it was big with the Egypts and stuff.
Because it marked but it marked when like it was the rainy season. It marked when that was starting, and then the Nile would start flooding and naturally watering all the farmland. And so they knew like this is the time that we plant our seeds. And so historically now it's just turned into like this really powerful time to plant metaphorical seeds and like start new projects, new habits, just anything that is going to benefit you and grow to be fruitful later. But something that I learned today is that, so it's the Lionsgate portal. So it's particularly strong in any area that Leo is in your chart. And so...
Oh, is that why you were looking at our charts earlier?
Yeah. So if... so like you can manifest whatever you want. But it's particularly potent if you put energy into places that you have Leo. So like I have Leo in my second, like literally the only place Leo is in my chart is in my second house, which is like where how you make your money. It's where meshes like, with how you find joy.
Yeah, your money and your happiness meet is your second house. That's so fun that's your strongest house. Wait, what's mine?
I know. I don't know. I couldn't find Leo in your chart because we were talking about where Leo was in your chart, and you were like, "Don't you have it?" And I said no, and then I forgot to grab it. So find where Leo is in your chart. But while you're looking for that, so like,
it's in my 8th house, but I don't know what that means. I'm googling. Please keep talking.
I think okay. I won't guess. I'll let you find it. So Leo is like the lion, the king of animals, right? Metaphorically. And so, like, anywhere that you have Leo in your chart is where you will find, like, your kingship. Like, that is, like, where you can step into your power. So, and if you don't have Leo in your chart, like, it's not like you can't participate.
Well, no, so that's something that I learned recently is, I've been really into astrology. We both have lately. Yeah. And I learned that there's a different way of reading your chart, like the wheel that you get with everything that breaks down is that you do, I think it's called a whole chart. What is this website? Do I have the website name? astro/charts.com. And you put your stuff in and you go to your settings and you change it so that it's a whole chart instead of a breaked chart. And this is the way that they used to read them like hundreds of thousands of years ago. Like, this is the oldest way of reading astrology. So, like, I'm not saying it's the best because it's the oldest, because that's not always true, but it's the way to make sure that every single house has something attached to it. So you have a higher chance of stuff being there because it's all 12 houses, and it breaks it down that way.
That's cool. I wonder when it changed.
I think astrology changes all the time. I think that there's always new ways of reading it and new stuff that is being perceived, because like the sky is always changing, the stars are always changing, and the study of astrology is always changing. So I think, and there's a bunch of different charts based off of the region that you are from. And like the way we read our charts isn't the way that like tropics read their charts, and it's not the way other people read their charts. So I think it's not a thing of like change. I think it's just there's a lot of different ways to get to the same answer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Leo is in my 8th house, and 8th house has to do with psyche, inheritance, money, debt, death, transformation, sex, and bonding at the deepest level.
Oh. I mean, that has a lot to do with the things you're already manifesting anyway.
Well, also, so one of the reasons that the Lionsgate portal is strongest on August 8th is because 8 is the luckiest number. So I think it's really funny that the Leo in my chart is in my 8th house. That's so cute. I'm gonna have to like manifest based off of those things on Tuesday.
So what are you doing are you doing anything special on Tuesday?
I normally, when there's like a big astrological sign, I think like the Taurus in me really comes out. Event, not sign. I think the Taurus in me really comes out, and I really like to just sit with the earth. Like I like to be touching the ground, and it always makes me feel more like centered, but also I don't know what it is. Like I feel safe when like my feet or like my body is to the earth. And then normally I do what's called is like scribing or letter writing, or gratitude manifesting are my 3 like biggest ones. I have a bunch in my phone at almost all times, because that's like, if your intent isn't to burn it and your intent is to keep it, I usually just put it in my phone. And I will like thank the universe for things. I'll be like, thank you, and I'll talk like I already have them, and I'll talk like I'm thanking the universe for that blessing, so that I feel like it is not only possible, but I'm going to have it, and this is me thanking them for like leading me onto the journey to get it. And then I do a lot of just like scribing, which to me is kind of manifesting based off of each chakra. So there's different sayings for each one. It's like I am, I will, I feel, I speak, I see. I'm forgetting something, but each one relates to a different chakra. It's not just always like I have this or I want this or whatever, because if you do it based off of everything, it's more of a full body experience, and it touches on everything instead of it just sticking in your root chakra, which is one of the hardest chakras to manifest from because it's so close to the ground and it has so far to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And really, I think the only thing I know about chakras, well, when I was in college, I went to one of the Aveda salons, which is like whitewashed Ayurvedic practices. So like they know some, like whatever. So I knew about that. And then from Avatar: The Last Airbender, honestly, like having to open up every chakra to be able to enter the avatar state at will.
Okay.
Like,
all right. That's one way to know.
If I have to open every chakra to step into my full potential and power, like that makes sense to me.
I've heard previously that the person, like there's like a conspiracy that the person who made Avatar: The Last Airbender is like a extreme spiritualist, because if you look at all of the stuff, it like truly lines up with like
Yeah.
finding the highest version of yourself. And like that's what people claim Aang to be, is
Yeah.
like Aang is his highest self, and you're watching that journey of him like getting to it completely,
Yeah.
which
And
I
like
think is crazy.
the Legend, I wasn't like super into the Legend of Korra, but that season or that series really goes into more of the spiritual aspects of the universe that they created.
I don't think I've ever watched that one.
It's fine. Like it's good for world building. I just find Korra really annoying personally.
Personally, in my humble opinion.
Right.
Are you doing anything for the Lionsgate? What are you doing?
Well, nothing that comes organically, but like I'm still, I mean, it's only been like less than 2 years that I've started
your journey.
any of this.
Yeah.
So, and like last year I was so unhealthy emotionally that
I was gonna say
couldn't-
mentally, but it felt mean.
well, mentally and emotionally. But so I don't think that I had the energy to like seek out or put myself into anything. So this year really is just me learning. Like this was my first Beltane that I celebrated, which was wonderful, and so I'm really leaning on like people who are more experienced and
So,
who have been doing this for a long
would
time.
you consider yourself a Wiccan?
No, I think they're called like eclectic witches, and they pull from like a lot of different disciplines.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say that's me. Like I pull a lot from Buddhist tradition, because I studied. So a little side tangent, but like when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in theology, I had to write a thesis, and it was a 45-page essay on how meditation affects the body physically. And I pulled a lot from Buddhist texts
Yeah.
and practices. So like I had learned a lot about the faith through that. And a lot of it resonated with me, so I still do a lot of that. Some Wiccan practices, honestly, like still some Catholic things that just like stayed with me. I think like the deity, that inclination to like have a deity, comes from that. Candles like are really important, and anointing them, and but yeah, I think really just respectively or respectfully picking things from different traditions that don't violate any closed practices or
Yeah,
things
it's
like
not
that,
appropriation, it's appreciation
right.
of like different ways that people do things. And like I feel like that's pretty much where I am too. Like I definitely wouldn't consider myself a Wiccan, and most holidays I don't celebrate. With the exception of like obviously Halloween because boss bitch, and then like anything that my children would want to celebrate is like stuff I lean into. But I feel like I'm more like what feels right and what feels comfortable. And I don't think I've called myself an eclectic witch. I always call myself a chaos witch because that feels correct.
Yeah.
So
Gremlin, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But I think the more I learn, and I'm trying to pull from a lot of different sources, and I don't know, like besides like some of the pagan feasts and festivals, like there's not a lot from like Wiccan tradition that really speaks to me.
When I first got into witchcraft, I did a lot of the pagan festivals and stuff because they're just so pretty, and they're like so like picturesque almost. Like the concept of them is really nice. But then when I like got into it, I like not all of them were stuff that like actually resonated with me.
And I think I have and I think Beltane, I didn't even celebrate it on May 1st. I think most of what I did was May 2nd. And so I think I'm just doing it with a grain of salt. Like, yeah, this idea feels good, and it's a good tool for reflection. Like so just because we're talking about Beltane is all about like fruitfulness and like spring blossoming and things like that, and that's a good thing to like meditate on, but I don't know that I put really any particular power in like that day. Like you have to do things that day for it to like have effect.
I think that's like, I'm pretty much the same. Like I definitely take the essence of the holidays. Like I really like what like Yule represents, and like that rebirth and that like reflection and that like darkness to light and all that kind of stuff. Like that really sits with me, and like that's something I usually do every year, and I like do take those like time to like shut down and all that. And I do like, I like the concept of Beltane. I like the concept of like coming back out of your shell and getting out of that hibernation and re-blossoming and stuff like that. But like it's the same thing. Like I don't feel an attachment to the days or the holidays. It's just like the cycle feels very nice to me.
Yeah, for sure. Too, like I still celebrate Dia de los Muertos, which is like a Hispanic Catholic holiday, really. And like I'm not Hispanic, but my best friend growing up was Hispanic, so I celebrated it with her family. And that still holds like special meaning, even though I'm not part of that culture. So I think intuitive practice is the most important thing, because if you start like just prescribing to every little piece of any religion, then it becomes stifling.
I feel like you're no longer yourself, you're what people are telling you to be at that point. Yeah.
And my spirituality now is definitely more of stepping into my own power and making myself like the god. And if I'm limiting myself on things that certain religions prescribe, then I'm not doing that.
That's so true.
So yeah,
I agree. Retweet. On the concept of being a god, I just want to talk about how really cool and bitchy I was this week. Okay, can we just have a little gasm session? Okay. We play a lot of video games, right? Like we're online constantly, unfortunately. And we play DVD all the time, which is Dead by Daylight for people who don't actually know that. And I feel like within the last like couple weeks, we've really gotten into making friends with people and like harassing them in pre and after game chat and just being like, ha ha ha, be our friend, we're so funny and cool. And that's just kind of the energy we've been putting out. And recently, like this week, I forget what day it was, we were playing Dead by Daylight, and we like exited the lobby, and at the end of the thing I was like talking to one of the people, and they were like, oh, you guys did so good, like you're so good at this, and like very complimentary. And I was like, well, thank you. I was like, you can play with us whenever you want, because I'm just in my friendship era apparently. And they were like, oh, let me add you. And I was like, okay, see you there, babes. Because I call everybody babe. Like, everybody babe, everybody's babes, everyone's baby. And I don't even remember if I called this person babe, but I'm going to assume that I did, just in case, you know? Like, just to cover the basis, right? So, like, maybe I called them babe, which I probably didn't, but maybe I did. And they add me on Steam, which is like the game hosting platform or whatever, and they messaged me and they're like, hey, my Steam and never says I'm online. It's so much easier to get a hold of me through Discord. Like, do you want to add me on Discord? And I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Like, I don't care. Like, if you annoy me, I'm just gonna block you and delete you. And I literally said out loud to you, I said, somebody's trying to add me, and I swear to God, if they're a creep, I'm gonna lose it, and I'm gonna block them, and they're probably just adding me because I look hot in my profile picture, because I do. I'm blonde, and my hair's long, and I look real good in that photo, okay? And it's like 4 years old, but it's like the first photo I ever used on Steam, and I've never changed it, because like, why do I care to change it, you know? They add me on Discord, and the first thing they do is they talk about my profile picture on Discord. And they're like, oh, you look real good in your profile picture. And I was like, that do be my face. Like, just real awkward. Like, don't talk to me. That's my face. I don't know what you want me to say to you. And then they sent me a picture of their face. And they were like, here's my face right back at ya. And I was like, disgusting. And I pulled out my god pussy. I was like, ew, you're gross. Who do you think you are, sliding into someone's DMs because you played a video game with them and they're hot, and then you're presuming to send your face to them, like to just be like, hey baby. And like, that's not how you go about it. And I know that you're gonna think you're the nice guy and you were just shooting your shot and all of this stuff and all of this narrative, and you're like, it's not anything. But like, just because a female presenting person plays video games and is attractive doesn't mean that you have the right to then immediately start hitting on them. Like, that is gross. Like, do you think you're the only person who's done that? Do you think that's an original thought? Because I promise you're not, and it's gross every single time. Like, this is the reason women and female presenting people don't feel safe in a gaming space, because the second somebody finds out you're a girl, there's one of two reactions. It's either I'm gonna fuck you, or fuck you, why are you here?
Yeah.
That's it. And I was just like, I went off, and I was really proud of them. And then I blocked them on everything. And then they wrote on my Steam wall trying to apologize to me, saying like, I didn't mean it that way. And I completely, I'm so sorry. And I understand, and blah, blah, blah. And then kept trying to add me back.
Yeah.
Like,
and
ew.
he did like the stutter, like he wrote in
the stutter.
Which is so fucking, it's so cringy. And it's also like it's, I don't even know if they do it intentionally, but it's like emotionally manipulative. Like,
no, I think it is intentional. Like, you can't convince me that it's not. That they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, feel bad for me. Like, I don't know what to say to you. Like,
and that's
ew.
That's what all the creepy gamer guys have in common. None are like confident or like assured of themselves or anything like that. They are all like, feel bad for me. Like, they're like, you owe them friendship, kindness, attention. And it's like, if I give you this sob story, now you owe me.
Yeah. And the thing is that, like, like, me personally, I wouldn't have fucked you because I don't fuck men. But like, if you would have came at it like, played games and formed a friendship and like actually saw if you had something in common, maybe you'd have a chance. But like, to immediately just be like, right back at you, baby, like, that's disgusting, and nobody's gonna want that. Like, I'm not your Discord kitten.
And it doesn't matter who it is. Like, they don't care who you are.
They don't care.
They just care that you have tits.
They care that you have tits and that you're halfway decent to look at and you play video games. That's it. And it's just like, that's one of the main reasons that we left Twitch, because it's just toxic. And it's toxic from all sides, but like, I feel like we've had so many shitty relationships. And like, by relationships, I don't mean like fucking, I mean like friendships and bonds and stuff like that. But like, with men whose intention 100% of the time was to fuck us.
Yeah.
And
or just the fantasy of fucking us.
Which is just as creepy. Like, to pretend to be somebody's friend, but then like, in the back of your head, you're thinking about like what my tits look like, or you're thinking about like the concept of us sexually.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Yeah. And like, there are certain pockets of Twitch, I'm sure, where like women can exist or female presenting people can exist and not feel like they have to sexualize themselves to get popular. But the majority of female presenting people on Twitch
get harassed.
They exist in a constant state of harassment, or they know that they're only getting 70% of their subs because of simps.
And then it's like, there was like that scandal a couple months, maybe, I think it was like 6 months. There was a scandal like 6 months back on Twitch of a woman who showed her tit on Twitch. And then she was like defending herself afterwards, trying to use like the Me Too movement and the Free the Nipple movement and power to the people. And like, I am 100% a Free the Nipple, Me Too, power to the people movement, but like, you don't get to dictate the rules of a platform. Like, you don't get to change the rules just because it's what you want the rules to be. Like, if you want to show your tits on the internet, there's plenty of places you can do that. And be my guest.
Yeah.
I think OnlyFans bitches are hot as fuck. Go start one. Do you, babe? Have an 18 plus Snapchat. Go on Twitter and just share your tits if you want to share your fucking tits. But don't use a platform that's not built for that. And then be mad that you got in trouble. Yeah. And then everybody in the comments was just like, it's not a big deal. It's not an issue. It's not, but it is. Yeah, because like, absolutely. You're dragging everybody else down, and you're making that stereotype that women in gaming are only in gaming to like have their tits out. True. Like, you're not helping the cause.
Yeah. And it literally, like, that was a big reason. Like, we had a friend who was a fan of this streamer, and the friendship was already breaking down anyway because they showed homophobic thought, but just the tipping point was the fact that he was still defending her. And even when she was banned for 3 days, she came back and like the whole stream was just her talking about it. And she alluded to the fact that, because she said that it was an accident because she was drunk, but then in the explanation stream when she came back, she alluded to the fact that she did it on purpose. Like, and it wasn't like this political movement, like, to do it on purpose.
No, it was just because she wanted to show her tits.
Yeah.
Because people in chats were saying, show your tits. Yeah. And she was giggling and she was like, ha 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 ha, and showed her tit. And then like I don't understand where you think any of that has anything to do with politics. And like shit like that, like trying to assign stuff like that, like careless behavior on a site where that's not allowed, and then using movements that actually mean something as the reason behind it is so toxic. Like, it's such a harsh narrative. And I'm the first person to say that, like, do whatever you want wherever you want, but that doesn't mean that there's not consequences to things that you do. And actions on places where that's not allowed have consequences, whether you agree with them or not. Whether I agree with them or not is irrelevant. It's the fact that that is the rule, and if you're gonna do it, you're gonna get in trouble. And then to bitch about it afterwards as like a political charge is so fucked.
Yeah. And it's not like platforms that you put videos on that have like arbitrary rules that nobody reads, and like you know that this probably is against the rules. Like, when you are onboarded as an affiliate on Twitch, you have to read what is allowed and what's not. Like, you are fully aware, because you have to sign like the tax documents to be able to get paid. And she was fully aware of that. That was not an accident.
And it's not something that hadn't happened before either. Like, they had documented, like, this year alone, they've banned so many people for doing shit like this. Yeah. And you can't be surprised that it happened when it's not just happening to you. It wasn't like they allow it and everybody else could do it, but you can't. It was, this isn't allowed, period, across the board, unacceptable behavior.
And he just like would not
let up about it.
Yeah. Like, he would bring her up all the time. Like, the last few weeks of our friendship, that's all we talked about. He would just bring her up. He was obsessed with her, and like just completely would not hear any side of how that was harmful.
I think that was the point in the friendship that I realized that I was just an internet person to him, and like the only reason that I was engaged with and watched is because sometimes I look hot and I have really nice tits. And I was just like, it was one of those moments where it was like, that's all we are. Like, that's what you Because the same things that he was saying about her, like, she's my friend and she's important to me and she's kind and she's caring and she's this and she's that, were things that he said about us all, like, to a T all the time.
Yeah.
And he was talking about her in that same aspect. And it was just like one of those moments where, like, I realized that all she was to him was like an object. And then I was like, what does that make us?
Yeah. And especially since he and his friend, who we were also friends with, and they had said something homophobic in our Discord. Mm-hmm. And when we came to them and explained how that was wrong and how we felt about that and how our feelings were hurt, they did not think, oh my gosh, I've hurt my friend's feelings. It was immediately, well, like, I'm allowed to say that because XYZ.
Yeah.
And there was no, like, there was no moment in that conversation where they were like, oh, I could lose my friend over this.
There was no remorse at all. Or, like, acceptance of, like, what you've done or what you said. And, like, don't get me wrong, by the end of the conversation, I was being a Tuesday about it. I was see you next Tuesday in my ass off. But that, I didn't come into it like that. I came into it like I truly didn't believe that they were people who would do something like this. And, like, here, this is me telling you that you've hurt me and other people, and, like, I need you to acknowledge this so we can fix this, so we can move forward. Like, I went into that as, like, a teaching moment. Like, I've had the same conversation with you about, like, not anything close to as serious as that, but about random stuff. And, like, you guys have had conversations with me about stuff like that, about random stuff, and, like, how our actions are being perceived and impacted, and, like, let's not do that. And the response that we have is not at all the response that was given to us. It was like, I'm allowed to do whatever I want, and how dare you say that to me, and blah, 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 and poke, and point, and it just, like, got to the point where it was like that person had become completely no longer able to be friends with, and then the other one was standing by him, and I was just like, that makes you just as bad.
Yeah.
Like, you may not be saying the things, and you may not be saying, I agree with them, but you're choosing to remain friends with someone who is telling you that this is what they believe. And that is enough for me to think that you believe and you stand by that. And that means that I can't be your friend.
Yeah. And even if, like, they don't necessarily have the same beliefs, if you are not going to stand up for something that you know is wrong, being complicit is just as bad as just as bad.
And I don't care who you are. Like, I don't care if you're my best friend. I don't care if you're, I was going to say my mom, but that doesn't really have any weight to it. I don't care if you're
a beloved family member.
I don't care if you're my child. If you are allowing somebody in your life that is doing hateful and harmful things, and you're not only aware of it, but you're not doing anything to stop, educate, or walk away from them, there's no conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
Because that's done. We are over. And I don't care if that's perceived as harsh. I feel like we live in a world nowadays where the lines are so far apart. Like, I just had this conversation the other day that the difference between a Democrat and a Republican isn't, I think we should tax the rich, and I think we shouldn't tax the rich, and minimum wage should be this, and minimum wage shouldn't be this anymore. The conversation between the left and the right is, this person's a human and this one's not. This person deserves a right and this one doesn't. There is a very obvious, scary prejudice and violence happening in America, and no, there isn't. Like, these are core value beliefs at this point that are separating these people, and I'm not going to just sit back and associate and have those types of people around me when those views are not only harmful to me, but to my kids.
Yeah. And they perpetuate more. Like it's homophobia today, but then it's racism tomorrow, because if you're going to do that to one marginalized group and think that way to one marginalized group, you can evolve into
literally
into
Florida
more...
is the perfect example of that. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to call us liars and you still want to say, just go look into the Florida laws of the advancement of everything that they're passing and everything that they're taking away from people over. Like, they literally banned AP psychology in Florida because if you teach gender studies at a college level, if you teach gender studies, you're not allowed to teach that course.
Yep.
Are you joking?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that you could just make people go away by not talking about us?
Yeah. And I think something you said that has really resonated since then, with me anyway, is like, there is no gray area here. Like, there is black and white, and you pick one.
Yeah.
In human rights, in morality, there is no seeing both sides. Like,
No.
there is a right side. Whether you're on that side right now or not, there is one.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not.
They were not.
And that automatically means that you're in the bad.
And I don't care if they're standing in what they call the gray area, because there isn't. Like, we are in an unprecedented time in life where everybody who is different is being lined up by firing squad. And you don't get to pick and choose which people should be lined up and which ones aren't.
Yeah.
Like, that is a psychotic take.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stand by, and I'm not going to watch it. And it gets to, I believe that there's gray areas in a lot of life. And I think that you can be a good person who's done bad things. And I think you could be a bad person who's done good things. And I think that there's a lot of gray. That is what human existence is. But there are certain things where I don't care where you sit in the gray, because if you're not firmly on this side of the line, I don't want anything to do with you.
And just because you don't fit into one of the oppressed margins doesn't mean you're exempt from speaking out against them.
Yeah. I think a relative topic that has to do with this conversation is the Lizzo allegations recently. And there's a lot of people in her comments about these alleged allegations, like, being like, oh, it's okay, babe, like, we support you and we have your back and I got you. And I'm just sitting there in shock, because why do you have her back? Why do you got you, babe? Why is it that you're taking the side of someone that you don't know? Like, I think the Doja Cat narrative of it all is really important right here, is that, like, don't get me wrong, Doja Cat's being a real bitch about it, but the concept of we don't know her is so fucking true. And people act like you're best friends with these famous people because you like their music, or because you like how they act in a movie, or because whatever, and you act like you know them. And it's like, what is that relationship called? The science?
Oh, parasocial?
Yeah. And it's just so unhinged. And that's what's happening now with the Lizzo situation, because things are being alleged against her. And people are just like, well, I know her. No, you don't. And even if you've been in the same room as her, unless you are a trusted confidant, I don't care what your opinion is. And even the trusted confidants, I still don't know that I care what your opinion is, because you're a trusted confidant of someone who's being accused of really nasty, disgusting things.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. A lot of the comments were like, well, people are just intimidated because she's a strong Black woman, and so they're going to find anything to bring her down. And I think that any celebrity, anyone on the internet, that applies to like content creators, that applies to like people on Twitch, like to circle back, like it what is shown to the public is so particularly curated that there is no way to like know them. And
Literally.
just to blindly, support, even though it is alleged, like just to blindly support anyone is insane.
I'm sorry, but like, even if tomorrow somebody came against you and said the things that they were saying about Lizzo, I would question you about it. And I don't care how well I know you, and I don't care that I would literally die for you. If somebody is saying the things that they are saying in the amount of detail that they are saying, and like literally ruining their chances at their career to stand up against this, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna listen to them. I am a believe the victim's ass bitch. And these allegations, alleged or not, are really disgusting.
Like again, they deserve to be listened to. And if it turns out that they're false, good for Lizzo. Like,
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we get to.
It doesn't mean that I'm gonna assume that they're false.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I'm sorry, but the innocent till proven guilty does not apply in cases like this. Like, you don't get to be a terrible human, allegedly, and have all of these things come out against you and then be like, innocent till proven guilty, I didn't do it. Because, like, I'm not going to believe you. I'm not. You need to prove that that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And as a victim of really horrid, awful things, I'm reading these women's statements, and I'm reading this lawsuit, and I'm reading the detail in which is being spoken about, and just like the weird random aspects of it, that like, in what mind would you make something like this up?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting stuck on, because it's just like, in my opinion, it's so fucking like guilty. Like, I'm reading that and I'm like, guilty. And I don't care that Lizzo is a strong Black woman who stands for plus size and LGBT and has done all these good things. I don't care, because that doesn't exclude you from these really nasty things being alleged at you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but if we're going to talk about strong Black women, Beyonce's never had a lawsuit like this alleged against her. Beyonce, who's been touring for how long, who has gone to how many endless shows, has had how many dancers, Beyonce has never had something like this come out against her. And if we're going to talk about people who like stand up for other people's rights, Paramore, I'm sorry, but she is the biggest. Hayley Williams is the biggest activist in the music industry, and she has never had anything like this come out against her. So I don't think it's an intimidation factor. Taylor Swift, and I know you hate her, Taylor Swift has never had anything like this alleged against her. Like, you can't use that somebody's trying to bring somebody down, or somebody's trying to reality check them, or somebody's trying to, it's because she's a woman, or because she's Black, or because she's an activist, because I can name multiple of those things from other artists who never had anything like this thrown at them.
And think of all the artists and public officials and people in power who it has turned out to be true. Like, look at all the corruption in the Catholic Church. And a priest is someone that you should trust. And a priest is someone that speaks out against evil and protects the weak. And how often did they use that to their advantage?
Yeah.
And the moment that we stop questioning the person in power just because they are in power and they're not supposed to do that, is the moment that corruption is going to flourish.
I think the reason corruption has flourished for so long and so many people have gotten away with such awful fucking things is because this is the first time where people are believing the victim. This is the first time where I'm standing with them until you can show me why I shouldn't be standing with them. And I think what's a really toxic narrative is people picking and choosing which victims they're going to stand by. And like me personally, I have situations recently that are exactly like this, where it's like, you can't be both. This is one of those spaces in life where there is no gray area. You can't be a believe the victim girly and a I stand with them girly. Like, you have to pick a side, because it's not, well, unless they have more proof, I'm going to agree with. No, you're picking the wrong side. Like, you're just picking a really toxic and dangerous narrative. And that's why it's so hard for people to come forward with stuff like this, because it's like, I know you're not going to believe me. And I know that nothing I say is going to change your mind. And then it's like, why do I want to come forward at all?
People in power already have enough people on their side.
Literally.
They have lawyers they pay, they have publicists and agents, and you name it. They're good. Like, if they are innocent, they've got it, right?
Yeah.
So there is no one on the victim's side. And like with my former student who was groomed and molested by her teacher, waited 5 years to come out because she thought, well,
Who's
I
gonna
was
believe me?
technically of age, so like, who's gonna care?
Yeah.
And waited 5 years, and now finally came forward, and it's being taken seriously. And she's been, you know, of course, super lucky and in that. But we were nervous when she decided to come forward that no one would believe her. And thank goodness she's a Leo and had receipts. But like so there really wasn't
crazy,
right. And like there really wasn't any not believing, but like that was super scary. And
I think
it shouldn't be like that.
No, but like, I think what's not talked about enough is like, what do the victims gain from this? Like, and not just in the recent allegations against Lizzo, but like in general across the board. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's not false allegations and false things that are put out there, because there are. But in most cases, what are the victims getting from this? Because,
except harassed.
Yeah, harassed, disbelieved, caught a liar, pushed down, made to feel like shit. Like, what is the gain? Because I'm not seeing one.
Like the quote unquote infamy that comes with
it's not a good one.
Right. And what, it's 15 minutes of fame at best while it's in court, and then it's forgotten about.
Yeah.
Like no one who is sane, I guess, would go into something like this for fun.
No.
Or to stir things up.
Like for the rest of their lives, when you Google their names, this is what's going to come up. And that is so scary. I genuinely, I don't understand, like, any of it. And I don't understand the complete hate that's thrown at people like this anymore. And like, you said to me the other day, you were like, you wanted to talk about on the podcast if men even liked women. And my thing is like, do women even like women? Do people even like each other at this point? Or is it just like a joy of tearing other people down? Like, is that where we are at in a society? That it's just like, it brings me joy to be mean to people?
And that's what is like all over my For You page. And like the thing that I brought up was, and I didn't even talk about the whole thing, but like, is just men treating women badly. And it, like, people eat that shit up. Like, other men, even like close-minded women who perpetuate the patriarchy, who just are so willing to say, oh, it was a joke. So like, okay, so the thing that I wanted to tell you, this husband and wife, it was their wedding day, it was time to cut the cake. He planned half the wedding, she was like, if we're gonna get married, I'm not planning the whole thing. Like, you have to plan half this wedding. So like, she was going into this thinking like, we're such a, you know, united couple, blah blah blah. He was in charge of the cake. When it came time to cut the cake, he shoved her entire head into the cake and held it there, and then had backup cupcakes. So he planned on doing this, even though she said, I don't want to do the smash the cake in your face kind of thing, like, this is my wedding day. He planned it, and she filed for the divorce the next day, and her whole family is saying she's making a mistake. Like leave out like just doing a joke on her on the wedding day. Like, that's an act of aggression.
Not only is it an act of aggression, but like respect. She out, like, it's not like you didn't know. Okay, maybe I could forgive it. Maybe I probably still wouldn't because I'm a bitch, but maybe I could find a path of forgiveness around the concept of like, I didn't know you didn't like that. I didn't know that you didn't like that tradition. Maybe. Probably not. Honestly, probably not. But maybe there's a path that way. But to know and be explicitly told, I do not like this, do not do this, I will be upset, I will be offended, and then to do it anyway.
And it wasn't even just like, I don't like this, don't do it. She explicitly said, I have PTSD from a car crash and I was being smothered by the airbag. I cannot, like, if you want to have fun and do a prank, like, whatever, find another one, but I cannot do this. It will trigger my PTSD. And he did it anyway.
And like, he held her face in the fucking cake.
Yeah.
And she,
and like,
she's a better woman than me because I would have caught a case.
Oh.
Jail. Yeah. I would literally, I would be calling you my wedding night. I'd be like, come to my hotel room. We have to hide the body. I'm gonna be rich, bitch. We gotta hide this body.
And the fact that, like, so, like, that's horrible enough. Like, that happening, which is not an uncommon thing. But then for her family to tell her that she's overreacting and to move on.
No, I hate that shit. I literally... Okay, fun fact. This is that trauma that I mentioned in episode 1 that we're going to get into, right? I've been in multiple abusive relationships. And multiple times, my family has taken the side of the man. And their line is that I need to be kept in line, or I need a strong hand to guide me, or that I'm just a lot to handle, and what do you expect? And I'm like, not to get my fucking ass kicked. That's what I expect. I expect love without a torn ACL. Yeah. That's what I expect. And that's literally the narrative. That like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, you need to relax. Yeah. Just forgive and forget. Or like, one of their favorite things to say to me is, who else is going to settle for you as a single mom of 2? And I'm like, first of all, nobody is settling for me because I am a fabulous partner and I have great tits and I rock in the bed. Okay. Fucking me is an experience and you are welcome. Okay. Nobody's settling for me. Okay. I'm amazing. And to say that to your own kin as like a take it and that's why you should settle for abuse is mind-boggling. And for people to be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Who cares that you have PTSD and your husband just held your face into a cake after you explicitly said, don't do this to me because I have PTSD, and if you hold my face into this cake, I'm going to have an episode. Like, are you joking?
And it's shit like that. Like, and it doesn't even need to be aggressive. Like, that was aggressive. Abuse, past aggressive. But it could be like the husbands who don't know where their children go to school because they just are so removed from the fact that the wife is carrying the family. Or like husbands whose wives die and then they don't know how to pay bills and don't know where keys are kept. And it's like, there should not be that in a relationship. And even if they love their wives, fine. I'm sure many men who are absent like that do.
I don't think that they do. I don't think that you can weaponize your incompetence like that and actually love a person. You love that they take care of you, and you love that the security that they give you, and you love that they make a home for you, and you love that they put food on the table. But if you loved a person, you wouldn't treat them like that. And that's what it gets down to. Like, if you truly love someone, you want the best for them, and you want to be the best version of yourself for them at every point. So you can't tell me that you love them and that's how you treat them. Like, have you seen that TikTok couple? It's like a Christian couple. It's a husband and a wife, and they do videos, and it's just them sitting there and like talking about stuff. And it was, oh, it's so good. She was like, I forget exactly what happened or whatever, but she was talking about how her and her husband got in a fight, and her husband refuses to apologize. And he says that it's a weakness that she wants an apology, because he doesn't owe her an apology. And to think that one is owed when he doesn't think that he did anything wrong is a weakness, essentially. And then literally in the same video, like 10 minutes later, she talks about how she left the house one time because they got in a really big fight and she didn't want to be there anymore. So she took the kids and she went for a walk, and he blew up her phone like, where the fuck are you? Where did you go? Where did you take my kids? What are you doing? And blah, 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 blah. And then she's like, and I didn't realize that he had trauma associated with this. And I was like, bitch, he has control issues, and he just wants to know where his property is. Like, it's not that he has trauma associated with that. You're thinking as a healed person, you're thinking as a mature adult, and he's thinking, who told you you could leave my house? Because he thinks he owns you.
Yeah. And I don't know of many men who don't think of their partner as, and they'll never say it, but when you ask a man, why do you love your wife? Why do you love your girlfriend? They usually say things that you would say of a maid, a mother.
Things that benefit them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot tell me that you love that person if you don't know anything about their personality. If you can't list something about their personality and who they are and why you love them, what are you doing?
Okay, like, could you imagine if my reasons for loving you as a person were the fact that you're hot, or the fact that you do business with me? Like, if my reasons for loving you were like, she plays video games with me, she's really attractive, I like her ass, and she likes to send presents, and that's why I love Faith. But that's like what relationships that people are settling for are literally saying.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's just a convenience. Yeah. You love things that are convenience, and you love things that are acts of service or a form of a love language coming out. But like, one, what are you doing in return for that? And two, what about that person do you like? Like, please name a quality about them that has no benefit to you that you like about this person. And they wouldn't be able to do it.
There's a group it's a feminist movement in Korea. I believe they're called the 4 Fs. Don't quote me. I'm not sure if that's correct, but
quote the 4 Fs.
And they are being talked about by the Korean government as a terrorist group because they are refusing to sleep with men.
As they should. Good for them.
They
clap, clap.
are refusing to sleep with men until men can show that they are working to be emotionally literate, until men are not looking at them as sex objects or mothers and maids. And it's not working. And then men are complaining to the government, like, I can't get married, I can't have kids, because no one will date them because they're pieces of shit who look at women as property. And the Korean government is now in crisis mode because their population is tanking. and like the repopulation rate or whatever it's called is tanking, and their population is going to like die in the next 20 years if they don't like get it under control. And instead of like, maybe let's give men some resources, like let's make therapy free, which I think it might already be if that's a medical, because their healthcare is free, so I'm not sure. But like, let's make therapy free, let's do like a marketing campaign about emotional literacy. No one is thinking about this as an option. Like, it's the women's fault for wanting to be treated as human beings.
And what's so crazy to me is that, like, I feel like we're in an unprecedented age where, like, I keep saying that today and I'm feeling really smart. We're in an unprecedented age of, ew, I just fucked my bangs up. I'm so sorry. We're in this age of not needing a spouse to find those kinds of things. Like, I've been single now since 2020. Pre-COVID, so almost 2019. It was like right at the cusp. So almost 4 years. And I have not missed or lacked anything because the friendships in my life are giving me the things that I would look for in a partner. I'm not desperate to find someone to talk to because I have that. I'm not desperate to give and feel love because I have that. There's nothing that a spouse could give me right now that I don't already have. And I've said that to you, and I've said that to Hefty, that like the next person, I just keep staring at my bangs now because I fucked them up. The next person that I date, I know is going to be the one, because my standards are through the fucking roof, because the friendships in my life are solid world-ending relationships.
Yeah.
Like, I have life partners already. I want someone that not only meets those standards, but exceeds them, and also fucks me real nice. Like, that's what you have to do. Like, you have to give me what I'm already being gotten, because it's no longer like 1950 and women all talk very daintily in the grocery store and nobody gets real and nobody gets raw and everything is very surface level. That's not the age that we live in anymore.
Yeah.
I could call you at 2 a.m. and tell you that my butthole is bleeding and start crying to you about my bleeding butthole and what am I going to do, and you would talk to me about my bleeding butthole and what to do and start Googling solutions for me. I don't need a partner to be in bed with me, next to me, to help me do that. I don't need somebody to help me through the emotional burden of being alive, because my friends already do that. My friends already do that and so much more.
Yeah. And there's a movement that I've really noticed in the past like 5 years of that friendships are relationships. Like, friendships are not just like people you go to the mall with or like people that come to your birthday party. They are a relationship that takes just as much work as a romantic relationship, because it is a partnership. And think of all the things that like we share. Like, we share every aspect of our lives with each other.
There's nothing off limits.
It is such a healing thing, and it has been so important to us developing as whole people, to the point where like it's impacted my marriage. Like, it's made my husband better
for the good. It's impacted your marriage for the good.
Right, yeah. Like, it's taught, like, if he hears the things that you and Hefty are doing for me, and he's not doing that for me, like, there's an issue. And like, my marriage has gotten better in the time that we've been friends, because our relationship is so good and so solid and so open that like that is just seeping into that relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why when we're making new friends, or we will make new friends, like, we're not taking bullshit. Like,
no, our standards are so high.
Like, with that creepy guy, even a year ago, maybe we would have entertained that.
Yeah, maybe I could have felt like I wouldn't have blocked them right away, and I would have let him like
Right.
explain himself, and then I would have been like, oh, he's just sad and lonely and it's okay. And like now I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, that's unacceptable behavior, and I'm not going to pretend that it is, and I don't care what your response to me calling you out is, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're going to do better after this, because you didn't do better to begin with.
Yeah. And I'm in an era of protecting my peace so securely that I don't have the energy to entertain anyone who is going to violate that peace.
I am at the point in my life where I am no longer looking for fixer-uppers. Yeah. And I have so much of my energy and so much of my time have been being friends or in relationships with people who had potential. That the potential was there, and no, don't get me wrong, they're a really good person when, or they're really great sometimes, or you should see them when it's just me and them, you don't know them, like, and I was that bitch, and I'm not gonna ever pretend that I wasn't, because I was. I have 2 fucking kids because I was that bitch, because I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted. But I'm at a point in my life where that's no longer a narrative that I am allowing into my life. It is not my job to help you heal. It is not my job to help you grow. It is not my job to parent you. It is not my job to accept anything less than what I want to accept. And I don't have to give you a second chance, because I don't know you. Do you know who deserves second chances from me? People who've proven themselves with the first chance and then they fuck up. They're the ones who deserve a second chance. They're the ones who have already shown a proven track record of being a wonderful person, and this is a mess up. This isn't a who they are. This isn't a pattern. And that's the difference. Like, I'm not a heartless bitch. I'm not just cutting people out of my life, but I very much am not allowing people to enter my life who have a question next to their name.
And I think that has come from the lessons we've learned in the past year and a half of people that we did give chances to and then fucked up over and over and over. And then we're so deep in it that it's so messy to end that.
Yeah, and we feel obligated to stay, and we feel obligated to help them, because we're like, well, they think that this, and they want this, and they're trying, and we're supposed to this, and I don't have time for that anymore. I don't have the energy for that. I am tired. You know?
And I'm sure that comes from a place, and I might just be speaking for myself, but I'm sure that comes from a place from when I was the broken version of myself. I wanted someone to take those chances on me. I wanted someone to see that I was a fixer-upper, and I wanted someone to give me the grace that I was giving other people. But what we've both learned, I think, in the past year, 6 months, is that the only person that has the power for that is us. Like, even though I have you and Hefty, and they've been such wonderful friendships and fulfilling friendships, I'm the one that took the lessons that I was learning from that and put the work into myself, and no one is going to come and save me. And I need to respect myself and continue this growth by not allowing people in my life that are going to undo the work that I've put in.
And it's not like I wish ill will on these people or anything like that, and I hope that they get to a point in their life that they're at the same place of the journey that we are, but we're not right now. And I don't have to wait for you to get to where I am. And I don't have to accept you into my life because you're trying to get to where I am. Like, I'm allowed to just protect my peace. And maybe that's selfish, and maybe it's closed-minded, but I'm at a point in my life where, like, I can't keep doing the same thing. Like, I can't keep watching a pattern happen over and over and over again, and then being like, why are these terrible people in my life, when I'm the one opening the door and giving chances and getting hurt in the long run because of my own actions. So now my actions are in the opposite direction, where I'm just guarding my peace. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, I'm not lacking. Stop doing that. I'm not lacking anything because of it. Like, I feel genuine love towards me and towards you guys every single day. Like, I feel love that you have in a relationship, love that you have with a partner, like love that is like to your core, I genuinely love you. And that's not something that has to be solely for your romantic partner. And I saw Instagram the other day. It was like an Instagram reel, so it was probably originally a TikTok. About, it was two women and they're best friends, and she was like kissing her best friend on the like forehead, and then they were like parting ways, and they like hugged and they like kissed each other on the lips, and then they parted ways to go their other way. And everyone in the comments was like, this is so harmful to the LGBTQ community, and this is a terrible narrative to spread, and you shouldn't be telling people this, because her caption was basically like, show your friendships like love and affection. Like, affection is not something that has to be reserved for a romantic partner. Like, you can show affection towards your friends. And I didn't understand why people were dragging her, because it's not like, she wasn't gay baiting, she wasn't like making out with this person, she wasn't even like kissing for a long time. It was literally like a peck on the lips, I'll see you later. And I've done that with my friends. Like, I am that person where I'm just like, I love you and I want you to be safe, and this is me showing affection to you. And it has nothing to do with a sexual attraction. It has nothing to do with wanting it to go past that. It has to do with, there's only so many ways to show somebody with your actions in a physical sense that you love them.
Yeah.
And like, a mom kisses her kids on the mouth.
I kiss my dogs on the mouth.
Literally, what's the difference?
Yeah, there isn't one. And I think that that's very cultural too, in both ways. Like, in Europe, it is super common to kiss your friends. And that it is not seen as taboo in any way. But like in Japan, like, they don't even have a word for love among family. The only love that they have in their language is romantic love. And so, like, if you ask a mother if they love their child, it is immediately like romantic love, and they're like, no, because they don't even have a word that.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
because there's so many forms of love. Like, I love my children, but the way I love my children is not the way that I love you. The way that I love you is not the way that I love Hefty. The way that I love, that's all the people I love.
Yeah.
But my sister, my little sister, the way that I love my little sister is not the way that I love you and that I love my kids. And the way that I love my nieces is not the way that I love my kids or my friends. Or there's so many different aspects to love, and none of them are less valid because they're different.
Yeah. Like, I love my husband in many ways. I love him as a friend, I love him as a lover, and I love him, like, as a partner romantically.
Ew,
and...
you have straight sex. Ew.
This is Cass's moment of realization that I have straight sex. And that's good. And you should have relationships that have multiple forms of love.
Mm-hmm.
And like our love, I don't just love you as a friend. Like, I do. We have aspects of like partner love. We have aspects of familial love. And that's what a fulfilling, life affirming friendship looks like.
And when you try you should look for.
Yeah. When you try to just put like one label on it is when you're putting too much energy into a bucket with a hole in it. Like, that is not going to come back and be poured into you if you're just dumping it in the wrong spot. And I heard something yesterday that was like, for people pleasers, because I'm on people pleaser TikTok, and it was like, when you are so kind to people who don't deserve it, or if you're just kind to everyone, you're going to attract people who don't like you, and they only like what you give them. And like, back to like, do men really like women? But like, it's for all people. Like, if you are giving too many chances to people who haven't earned them, you're going to surround yourself with people who don't fulfill you and don't contribute to your growth.
I think you're gonna have to like give me a moment here to get to my point, right? Okay. But what this is reminding me of is that video you were telling me about the man in the library, like demanding that a girl takes her hat off, and he's like, why? And he's like, because it's respectful to not wear hats in a building. And she said, is it like a rule? Is this an obligation? And he's like, no, respect your elders, right? That was the gist. And the reason it's reminding me of that is because in the concept of people pleasing, your immediate reaction is to give yourself to somebody. And if somebody comes up to you and says, take your hat off, you take your hat off. And when you're that type of person, when you're not trying to unlearn that, when you're stuck in that, what is a toxic point of view, what is a toxic life, not that it's your fault that you got there, and most people pleasers end up there because of trauma, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
When you're in a place like that, the type of people that you attract, the type of people who want to be around you are people like that old man, who want to say something and have that immediate gratification of, I'm right. And it ties back to those relationships that we were talking about earlier, with men not liking women and just saying whatever they want to say, and the women just doing it. That's what a people pleaser's life will look like if the habits aren't unlearned, because you're attracting people who might not even like you, might not be attracted to you, might think you're a piece of shit, might not like your hobbies, you have nothing in common with, but you're not standing up enough for yourself to be like, I don't want this and I don't have to take my hat off. And that's where that comes in, because if she would have done it, that man would have been like, oh, what a good young little lady and I love you, and like that parasitic relationship would have been formed, because it's like, if you give them what they want, they think that that's respect, and they think that's love, and they think that's a relationship. And you think that them being happy that they're getting what they want is them liking you. And it's not. They're not even close to the same thing.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you are not your full potential, and you are not taking care of yourself and doing things and attracting people who align with who you are as a person. Like, I kept thinking during this whole thing was, I was engaged twice before, but my fiance before my current husband I lived with, and he was cheating on me the entire relationship.
Can we just side note, the only reason that Faith has been engaged so many times is because she's a fucking people pleaser who doesn't know how to say no. Yeah. They'd be like, will you marry me? And she'd be like, I guess. Yeah,
I can't say no. Like, they went through all this trouble.
What else am I supposed to do? Like, that's what I was talking about.
I knew he was cheating on me our entire relationship. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. And he was emotionally abusive our entire relationship. And then he got fired. He was working as a residence hall director, so his board was paid for, and he got fired. And then he had to move out of housing, so he had nowhere to live. And so he moved in with me, not paying rent, of course. And I would go to work all day, and I would come home to the house a mess. And I'm like, what did you do all day? And the answer was nothing. And then his grandma died. I'm still not sure if that was legit. But he went to Alabama for the funeral. Mm-hmm. And after he was there for 2 weeks, I was like, with like zero communication, maybe a text a week, I was like, what is going on? And I am certain that he was living with another woman, or like hooking up with someone, or whatever it was. And because he just wouldn't tell me anything, like when he was coming home, what he was doing there, nothing. And it would take him hours to respond to anything. And so I finally got up the courage to pack up his things, and so that when he came home I could kick him out, and I was physically ill over that. Like, that took so, like, everything in me to make that decision. And then he came home and I said, I'm sure you're gonna deny it, but I know that you're cheating on me. You need to get out of my house. We're done. And he didn't argue with me. And he was just like, okay, I can leave in the morning. I have nowhere to go now, but I'll sleep on the couch and I'll leave in the morning. And I let him. But that was my answer. And I think in most friendships that I've had in my life, most relationships that I've had, like, they didn't really love me. They only loved what I was giving them. And it took that relationship for me to, like, really see it.
I think I have two thoughts. Thought number one is that I think a lot of my relationships have been like that, and I'm way less of a people pleaser than you. Like, I am very much a mean person. At least I was. I used to be like a raging bitch, and I'm much nicer now. But I've always been like a you don't get to treat me like this kind of person. But I've also always been someone who has that voice in my head that's like, this is what you deserve. And I accept it because this is what I deserve. And I think a lot of my relationships have been like that, where it's just somebody who can do it, so they do it. They're like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, oh, you're going to get mad? Oh, you're going to get angry? Like, I don't care. I'll get over it. Like, you're not going to leave me. And I think, to my second point, that we, in our friendships and all this kind of stuff, have learned pretty recently. I'd say in the last 3 years, like, I got out of my most recent abusive relationship where he literally beat the shit out of me. And the only reason I ended it is because he kicked a bin down the hallway. He was pissed off and he kicked a toy bin, and it hit my kid and it gave him a nosebleed. And that was the first time that my child had been injured in any of this. He had never raised a hand. He had never intentionally hurt my kid. And I'm not even saying that the kicking the bin wasn't intentional. I don't think he meant to hit the kid. But he hit my kid, and my kid got a nosebleed. And I saw my life flash before my eyes. And I just realized I was going to raise children who abused people because that's all they knew. And I was teaching them that this is what love looked like. And that was my last straw. That, like, I will put up with so much shit. I will let people walk all over me. And that has been true to who I am, unfortunately. That, like, you could, up until recently, get away with murder with me. But the second you hurt my kids is where it's like, that's my line. And our friendship has taught me that you can't get away with murder with me. That, like, I deserve to be treated in a good way. And I think the same goes for us, that, like, you back towards me really try really hard not to be a people pleaser. And that's something that we work on all the time, like, specifically me and you. And even with me to this day, you still struggle. Like, there's multiple times where you'll go to say something and then you'll stop. Or you'll be like, well, I mean, and then I'll, like, pull it out of you. Or you'll just get really quiet. And I'm like, I know that there's something you want to say. And everything in you fights the instinct to say that. And mine is in the opposite direction. Where, like, I have to stop myself. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. Like, recently we had, like, a disagreement, and I said the first unhinged thing that I thought of to, like, get my point across. But usually 8 times out of 10 I, like, stop and I think it through before I just say something. And I forget what my point was, but I think it's just, like, a very obvious example of our growth, that, like, we sit here and we talk about the things that we have been through, and I can see how that doesn't align with, like, our relationship, and it doesn't align with like what we're willing to put up with anymore. And sometimes I'm just really awed by us, and I guess that's my point, because I don't remember what the original point was.
And I go back to like you realizing that the situation that you were in was not acceptable when your child was at stake, because I don't think people had our backs when we were kids. Like there was no one who would have done that for us as children.
No.
And the growth that has really come for me in the last 6 months or so has been healing my inner child and really listening to her. And the reason that I'm such a people pleaser is because when I did speak my mind when I was a child, I was like invalidated, or I upset people by speaking my truth. And so then I learned, okay, well, if I say how I feel, people are going to be upset or I'm going to get in trouble. And so I learned to suppress that. And it is still really hard for me to listen to her, but I have to put in the work now to honor my inner child and to work through those things, because even if I never have kids, which I probably won't, like I don't want to teach anyone that is going to be in my life that that is okay, because I would fight for anyone else who was doing that, and I have to be the one that's going to do that for myself.
I think it ties back to that man in the library we were talking about, and like we offline kind of touched about this the other day, that like the reason that we have had such hard times like speaking up for ourselves and standing up for ourselves and like not accepting bad behavior is because we were raised by people who respect was obedience, and like that man wanted her to just obey him and like do what he said. And that's very much what we have lived in our life with people who don't want respect, and they don't want conversations, and they don't want mutual growth. They just want to say something and that be the answer, and that be the only acceptable thing, and period. Like, don't do this, period. I don't care what you want to say. I don't care what your thing is. This is the law, essentially. And it's really hard to unlearn stuff like that. It's really hard to teach yourself that you don't have to be an obedient person. It's like reverse Pavloving yourself. And that's so fucking hard.
Yeah. And there's, I think, a lot of people on TikTok who make videos to the effect of, I kept falling for people with tons of red flags, and when I finally got into a good relationship, I realized I was the red flag because of all of the trauma. And I think that if you just keep putting off that healing, then you will never find a good relationship, because again, like nobody's going to save you, and you could find the best person in the world, but that relationship is doomed from the beginning if you don't fix those parts of yourself.
I truly believe that the best people in the world are the people who can acknowledge the red flags that they have had and have been, and own it with their full chest and changed. And I honestly am so grateful that I haven't met my life partner yet, because I know that up until recently, if I would have met them, it would have failed. And I know that none of the people that I have been with are my person. Like, they're not the person I was meant to be with, because not a single one of them on either side of the line was a healthy relationship, because I showed up as who I was raised to be and not who I should have been. And they showed up and they did terrible things. And then I started doing terrible things, because you can only take so much before you give something back. And all of it was just really, really ugly. And I'm so grateful. Like, I'm grateful that you have the experience of like growing with your husband and changing and evolving with him, and that's wonderful. I'm so glad that I didn't have to do that, because I don't know that my relationship would have lasted.
Yeah. Well, my marriage almost didn't make it. Like,
Yeah.
we have really, really struggled. And like, he has shit that he has to work through. And I think we got really lucky that we found someone who will grow with us and be patient and go through the red flags and work through them. But I think at any point, if we were at our core certain that growth was impossible, that we wouldn't have lasted.
I think one of the main reasons that it worked so well for you guys is that yes, you have red flags, but your red flags are like that really faint color red flag, whereas mine are like neon red flags, which like thankfully I don't have anymore, but like they were real bright, you know?
Right.
And I don't think that the healing that I've done and learning what a healthy relationship is and learning how to love and appreciate and communicate and all that kind of stuff like I have with you and Hefty, I don't know that that would have been able to happen romantically, because I feel like there's an added pressure with romance. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's harder to push back. And or at least it used to be. Like, I don't feel like that is who I am anymore, but I feel like I was raised that way, that like it's harder to push back in romance, and it's harder to say no to someone you're supposed to be like spending your life with, and it's harder to, I don't know, just speak your piece when there's so much more tied to it. When it's like, oh, well, what about a marriage, and what about my future, and what about all this kind of stuff? And like, I've now learned and realized that I don't need a spouse to have a future, and I don't need a marriage, and I don't need a spouse to have a lifelong partnership and a lifelong love. But I don't know that I would have learned that and I would have grown and healed that way if I had a spouse.
Right. I think too, the stakes are not as high. And if my marriage were to fail and I had to start over, I think me 4 years ago would have been devastated. And like, I'll never find anyone ever again. Like, I'm just gonna live my life alone. And the stakes just aren't that high. That's not true.
Yeah.
Even if I don't ever find another romantic partner, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, the platonic life partners that I have now are just as fulfilling, and the power that I found in myself is just as fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even, and I think we've talked about it before, like, if we were to end our friendship tomorrow, like, it would suck, but I would be okay.
Yeah. Like, I would mourn it, but I wouldn't die, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'd get up and I'd find new friends.
Mm-hmm. But even if I didn't, I think I'd be okay.
Yeah.
And that is a realization that would never have been an option for me 4 years ago.
Even a year and a half ago, I lost a really long-term best friend, and you were there. I was devastated. I was a mess, and I was like, who does something like this, and I'm never gonna have a friend like that again, and I'm never gonna trust people, and why do I put energy and effort into things for them to fail? And it's like, you're allowed to put effort and energy into things for it to fail. You're allowed to give something 110% and it go absolutely nowhere. Because I think in the last couple years, I've learned that failure doesn't exist. You're not failing. You're just redirecting your life. Like, if something isn't for you and if something doesn't work out, it's not because you weren't good enough, or because you didn't try hard enough, or because X, Y, and Z, or because they didn't love you enough, or they didn't like you enough, or you weren't worth it, or you're not worthy, or you're a burden, or any of those reasons. It's just because they've fulfilled their purpose. And if they were never in your life, it's because they didn't have a purpose to fulfill. And it's because something better is coming. And you're going to be so glad that that didn't work out, because something better is coming. And I am so glad that the things that I thought that I wanted in my life, I didn't get. I'm so glad that the relationships I thought I could never live without crumbled. Because where I am now and who I have in my life now and the joy and the happiness I have now is not something that I ever would have accomplished if I would have stayed there.
And it's better than something I even could have imagined for myself.
Truly, truly. I don't think me a year ago, me 2 years ago, me 10 years ago ever thought that I would have deserved something like this. And now it's not you deserve it. This is basic human decency, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's so rare that people treat people as true humans nowadays, as like a true spiritual to your core relationship where I will give you everything that you'll give me and I will meet you exactly where you meet me. And some days you can only meet me at the 30% line and I'll give you my whole 70. I'll meet you there. And knowing without a doubt that some days when I'm at that 30% line, I'm not going to be like, hey, over here. I know that you're going to meet me exactly where I can be. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I thought that that was what a relationship would be. I thought that was like a luxury. Yeah. I thought that was a rarity. And like, it is a rarity, but not in the way that I thought it was.
Yeah, it's not rare in that it's special. It's rare in that it's uncommon.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why people are drawn to people who do think that way, because they're like, and I think even before we were as healed as we are now, like a year ago, like people were drawn to us because we had aspects of this thought, and they're like, oh, like I've never met someone who treats people this way, like they're human, and who talks so like
openly,
truthfully, mm-hmm. and organically, and like you're allowed to protect that. Like you don't owe people that energy. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make, like, because earlier we were talking about like ending friendships who don't protect your peace. Mm-hmm. And like I don't think that does make you selfish. I don't think that you are a bad person for protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know, like I'm gonna make a really bad metaphor, but like just like a clam isn't bad for closing up when danger comes, you know? Like that is what's good for them, and that's a natural instinct. Right?
I love you so much, and I think you're so smart. That's all I have to say about that analogy. But I do agree with the point you were trying to make. That I do think that that's something that I still struggle with, that like I feel like a bad person when I cut people out, or I feel like I'm being selfish because I'm like not wanting to give myself. But you're right, like I'm not a bad person and I'm not selfish for doing what I need to do to protect myself. And I don't owe somebody an explanation for why I am doing something to protect myself. And a clam doesn't explain why it closed. It just closes, and that's okay. And that's, you know, it's fine. And I'm so stuck on the clam thing. I can't think of anything else. I'm so sorry. All my thoughts have left my head. And I was
just trying to think of something in nature. Like, I do not think...
Like a porcupine? When it, like, quills up?
No, like, I don't think an animal is evil for protecting itself when it's in danger.
Yeah.
Like, that is not a thought. Like, that's a natural instinct.
Yeah.
And I think when you place those labels on people when they're trying to protect themselves, that's something that as a society we need to move away from.
It's because people grow up back to the fucking man in the hat, thinking that they're owed something, thinking that respect looks a certain way or a friendship looks a certain way, and obedience and obligation are some of the things that people for so long have thought were things to be sought after. Like an obedient wife was like a tagline 20, 30 years ago. To like have an obedient wife who does what you want when you want it. And now like that concept makes me sick to my stomach. Like an obedient wife, that's what you want? That's disgusting. Like that says so much about your moral character.
I broke up with someone. You saying that triggered this memory because I met his family and his dad loved me because he said I was subservient. He was like, you gotta marry this one.
Ew.
And that was the only reason he liked me.
Ew.
Yeah. And I'm like, if that is the value that I have in this relationship because I please my partner, imagine what a life with them would have looked like.
And that's truly what I think a lot of people forget about, is that like you're supposed to be building a life together. You're supposed to be with someone and build relationships with people. And I don't care what type of relationship is. All of your relationships are supposed to be a type of building together, of growing together, of taking the same path in the same direction. And it's okay if the timing is a little bit off, but it's not okay to not be going that way at all. And that's the difference, that men like that who want obedient wives and subservient wives, and people who want friendships and they want you to meet them where they are, they're not doing it back. They're standing exactly where they are, and they're like, well, you said you would meet me where I am, and you said you would do this, and you said you would do that, and like, yes, I did, but I don't owe you that. You're supposed to do it back. I am not obligated to give that to you, and it's not my job to force you to do it back. And it's not my job, even if you are doing it back, to feel the need to continue doing it. I'm allowed to end a friendship because I feel like what you're doing isn't enough. And I'm allowed to end a friendship or a relationship because I don't feel seen or heard or listened to. And those are valid reasons to walk away from someone. Feeling like you aren't getting what you are giving is enough to walk away. You don't need anything else. And I feel like that's a lesson that we've really learned this year, is that it's okay to interpret things differently than the other person does, and I don't owe them to stay because of their interpretation. And I'm viewing this as, you're not giving me enough and you're not meeting me, and I'm standing here, and even if you're getting as close as here, you're expecting me to come here when this is all I can give today. And it's not my job to do that. And it's not your job to do it either. But don't expect me to continue that if you're not willing to put in the work in both directions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not your job. And it's not even your job to teach them that they're not doing that. It's not your job to explain how they're not meeting those needs. They're not. It's over. Like, if you want to end the friendship over that, like, all you have to say is goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, you don't owe anyone anything. And to think that we do is dangerous for the progression of healthy humanity.
Yeah. I don't think it makes you like a bitch or standoffish or blah, 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 whatever. I think it just means that you're acknowledging your boundary and you're acknowledging what you're willing to give and get. And if it's not being met, it's not being met. That's it. That's the sentence.
And of course, like, this does not apply to people who are not getting, like, minorities and disenfranchised people. This does not apply. Like, I do not have the power to withhold things from them that are basic human needs, because it, like, protects my peace.
There's a difference between expecting a healthy relationship and people to meet you where you are, and thinking that you don't owe someone common decency and respect just because they're not what you want them to be.
Yeah.
And I am allowed to end my friendship with you and say, you're a dirty fucking bitch because I don't want to be your friend, and that's fine. But I'm going to call you the right pronouns while I shit talk you. Yeah. And I'm going to say, I don't want to be your friend, and I'm not going to base that reasoning off of your skin color. And I am allowed to walk away from a relationship, but the reason I'm walking away isn't because you're trans.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to take the basic humanity of it all and use that and, like, weaponize that with the concept of a healthy relationship, because they're not the same thing. Human decency is not protecting your peace. Human decency and withholding human decency is just you being a selfish pig.
Mm-hmm. And with the ex that I had to kick out, I was allowed to break up with him, and I was allowed to tell him that he had to leave my house. But if I knew that he was going to be homeless and on the street, if I kicked him out, I don't think that would be okay. Like, you can protect your peace as long as it's not putting people in danger.
I agree and disagree with that one, because I don't think that you owe anyone anything. And I think that, yes, you should try to help, and yes, you should try to find a solution, but homeless shelters exist for a reason.
Yeah.
And there are options, even if they're not the ideal option.
Right.
And I don't think that you should stay with someone who has proven themselves to not love or respect you, and allow them into your space and allow them to make you feel uncomfortable in your own home just because the alternative is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Wow, that was a nice little bow. That was such a good conversation. It just, like, flowed. I liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just good. Like 2 hours of opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to know something funny before we go?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so I was supposed to take an everything shower before we filmed. And I didn't shower. My hair is filthy right now. But I washed my bangs in the sink. Wait, I washed them with hand soap because I didn't want to go get my shampoo.
Oh my god.
And I washed them with hand soap so I could do this so that they would look cute. And then I pinned everything else back so it looked like it was slicked back, but that's just grease. It's just dirt.
So funny. Cass said before we started recording, they were like, I have something really funny to tell you at the end, and I did not expect that.
I didn't want to say it at the beginning because I didn't want anyone looking at my hair. I've been looking at my hair this whole time, and I didn't want other people looking at it and clocking me, but I'm telling at the end because I think feral rat girls need representation, and I am that. Yeah, because these are hand soap bags, and they feel real nasty. And I don't know if you've noticed, but multiple times today they've like clumped up because I used hand soap to wash them, and the texture is just real questionable.
Yeah. Like no conditioner, nothing. It's just, I mean, clean. They look good. I didn't even notice the clumping.
I know.
So
it's great.
In a pinch, hand soap.
Feral rat girls unite. Wash your bangs in the sink. Nobody can tell. It's the internet. Nothing's real.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not wearing pants.
I turned my camera off earlier when I went to get Tylenol because I'm not wearing I was like, I gotta go get some Tylenol, and I just turned it off because I have this
Valid.
nice denim shirt on though.
Yeah.
No pants
Who
though.
can tell? I don't need pants.
Exactly. You didn't know I had
Yeah.
hand soap bangs. Judge yourself.
Yeah.
Me and my hand soap are doing just fine. They also have been like wafting a really weird scent. Like I don't know what scent that hand soap is, but it doesn't smell good. And I wish that they like reached my nose so that I could smell them. But I can't. So
Just like do the thing where you like breathe into your hand and then you waft
Like-
your breath back up to yourself. Like
like, I don't know what the scent. Look, did you see how clumpy they just got? Don't do that.
just stop.
And they're deceptively flat. Like you just can't tell because of the angle, but they're not. They don't have good movement. It's not
That's
a good
so funny.
time.
Oh. Well, that was good. I'm really glad I knew that.
You're welcome. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that's on the internet forever.
Sick. Let's go get high.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye guys.